Here we go.
You're tuning in to Will Love Listen. Now listen.
Start that. James Van Praagh, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been following your work for years, actually. And I went to one of your shows like 5 years ago. It was in Morristown. And like I
Sure.
met you briefly, but this is my first time interviewing you. So
Oh, good. Okay, here we are. Yeah, Morristown is a great little place. I love that town. Really, really nice.
yeah, and that venue is convenient too. And the venues that you're going to be touring in next month are similar.
They're
And
very similar. Yes, I've done them all before, and that's why I want to go back because I had such a great time. And the audiences are great. I'm originally from New York, Queens, New York, and I stayed in New Jersey a long time. A lot of relatives in New Jersey, so
oh,
it's
nice.
my vibe. So I get along with people really well, and I understand them. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. You could handle the like New
I
Yorkers.
can handle them, and yes, East Coast people are very different than the rest of the country for sure. But it's true. Every city in the world, people are very different. And audiences are very different all over the world.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, you know firsthand because you're always touring.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of cities.
So there's a lot I want to talk about today.
Okay,
Obviously we're going to talk about the tour, we're going to talk about all of that. But I kind of want to take it back a little bit and like learn a little bit about like your life, like growing up to now.
sure. Anything you want. I'm open. Anything you want.
Well, I understand you were raised Catholic like myself, and you were even an altar boy. And
Yes,
you started having experiences with the supernatural really early on. So
yes.
I want to know, like, when did that first start initially, and what type of encounters with the afterlife did you have?
Well, when I was the first one I remember, and there's several that really stand out. The first one I remember, I was a toddler. I had to be probably two or less than that. And I remember my parents were in the main living room and they wanted to put me in the crib. And I've always been a night owl. So this is not, now I look back, like, that's why. And I think it was like 8:30, 8:30 around there at night. And I wanted to stay with them. And I remember this so vividly. I wanted to stay with them in the living room where they were having the fun. And then every night they'd put me in the crib and I wanted to be with them. And it's so funny. I remember there was a gentleman in my bedroom. I was in the crib, and he was in the corner of the room, and he had white hair, and he would come to the crib, and he would have some kind of a mobile type of thing, and it fascinated me, and I'd play with it, and he'd smile, and that happened often. And then years and years later, I was with my grandmother, and we're going through a photograph album, and she came across a photo of that man. I said, "Who is that?" And she said, "Oh, that's your grandfather. He died before you were born." I said,
Oh,
he used to come to visit me when I was in the crib. And then I remember another experience happened when I was in first grade. I remember I was 6 years old in first grade, and I was again a night owl. So in the morning, getting there 9 o'clock in the morning, I kind of fall asleep. And I guess I could say now I was in a light transient state. And I remember there was a young kid came through the window, a guy, I guess he probably is about, I don't know, he was a teenager, I guess. And he came over to me and he said, "Hi, my name is William, and I knew you from the Civil War." And I'm like, okay, I didn't know anything. And
yeah.
he said, "I'm going to give you this design, and it will mean nothing to you now, but later on you'll use it." He goes, "But we knew each other. My name was William." He said, "Okay, bye." So years and years later, I once did the Ouija board with someone, and I remember there's a William
Therapy.
came. Yeah, a William came through on the Ouija board. Said, "I'm from the Civil War. We knew each other then." It's like, oh, wow. And I remember, then I remembered back in first grade. But then what happened was years later, I wrote a book called Growing Up in Heaven. And it was about children who pass over and why those souls choose to come as children and leave and the connection, the contract they have with their parents and so forth. And I remember at the end of the book, I wanted to kind of depict what a soul would look like. And that image that William gave me when I was 6 years old came right back into my head. And I put that at the end of the book. And it's sacred geometry. It's 144 segments. And that was interesting. And that's when I came back. So that was that experience. And then growing up as a kid, I used to see colors around people, known as the aura, the lights around people. I would know things about people before they would say things. I would know things. I would know things before they would happen. I would say to my mom, "Oh, that's not a good person over there. Don't, he's gonna want something from you." And sure enough, the guy tried sticking her up once. And yeah, it was a weird kind of childhood, but I kind of knew things. And to me, it was just as if everybody could do that. I don't think anything special, because as a child, you kind of look at your world around you and you measure your world by your experiences. And I thought everybody could see colors, everybody knew things. And not until my mother said to me once, because I asked her, I said, "Mommy, who are those people at the end of the bed?" So you say, being Catholic, say prayers every night. And
Yeah.
she said, "Oh, those are God's angels. You see them too? I used to see them when I was a little girl." And she goes, "They'll always take care of you." I must have been 7 or 8 years of age then. And those were my first kind of experiences that I remember.
Wow. So you really had them all your life.
Yeah,
You were in the
yeah.
crib. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I remember, it's so weird. I remember when I was in the stroller, right? And I remembered my brown boots, and in those days, God, it was little brown shoes. And I remember I was banging them on the little stroller, the little shoe area. And I remember the name of the stroller called Babyland. I still remember that. So yeah, strange memory, but there you go.
That's so like interesting that, and especially the fact that you were unfazed, because I feel like most kids would kind of be either like taken aback and would run away, but the fact that you were like unfazed by it, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it just seemed natural to me. It didn't, it just seemed very natural. Didn't think anything special of it. Whoops. Excuse me. There we go. My camera's acting very weird. There we are. Okay, back.
You're good though. You're good.
I just thought it was natural. I never, I was always, one thing I will say, and it really was very helpful, and perhaps I came in this lifetime with this awareness and this mission to help people. And I've always had a sense of myself. And as a little kid, I was one of four, the youngest of four. And it was, my mother was an alcoholic. My father was never there. So I find that, in those, uh, adversity, when kids face adversity, the strength comes out. And I think that was a soul contract to come with that family. And I was always kind of had a sense of myself always as a young kid. I never had to kind of look for myself. I always kind of knew a sense of who I was, from very young age. And I always knew about death, that death was always a continuation, or we went somewhere else. And this is something fascinating you might find, that I had a cemetery in the back of my backyard for all the pets and the animals that would die. My pet turtles and gerbils and fish, and the neighborhood cats and doggies, and would have St. Michael's Cemetery, pet cemetery, on the side of my house. And I used to have a ceremony. I used to have like a little, like a little mass kind of thing for them, or whatever I would do. I would pray and say prayers and make a whole ceremony. And that, of course, would be from past lives as well, having that awareness of the ritual. I think that's always been part of my experiences too.
That's so interesting. That's funny you mentioned that, because not to like talk about myself, but what's interesting, obviously I'm not a medium or a psychic, but when I was younger, I was visited by a woman, and she would show up in like a wedding dress. And this happened for quite some time, but I guess, I didn't acquaint it to actually being someone that was dead. So, I had told my parents, and the way they were like, they thought someone broke into the house at first, but obviously that wasn't the case. But it ended up being my grandmother, who was deceased before I was born.
There
So
you go.
there was no way I could have known that.
That's
Um,
right.
but it's interesting. And sometimes
And
I'll have,
how old were you then?
it was before my brother was born. So I was 3 and 4.
You're four,
Possibly
right?
I believe it may have gone on until I was 5 maybe, but
Sure.
I was like 3 and 4.
Yeah,
Um,
so children are very open. We've just come from the other side of life, so our mindset is very, very open to these experiences. And it's not until probably around the age of 6 or 7 when, we go to school and we have to follow rules, and the
exactly.
adults, our parents, say follow the rules. You got to do this to get an A in class, or in some way, it's like the kid is thinking, I got to be accepted, or I got to be better than. And if I follow these rules, then I'll be accepted or loved. And I think unfortunately, that's what happens. I think we get programmed,
We
and
do.
usually
Yeah.
we become people pleasers, and we want to just, because we want to be accepted or loved. And I think most people go through that until probably their middle age. And then somewhere around that time, they think, wait, something's not syncing, something's not jiving together. And it's because they're not living their true life, they're living somebody else's life. So I really think that's part of it. And when they then start to live their own life and empower themselves, then they're happy. Then they have a sense of who they are and they can start living their true life, their authentic life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's such a problem today. And honestly feel that's why people are so miserable, is because like, and even people that I've encountered, like someone that I knew, and they were always so unhappy. And I'm like, why are you so unhappy? Like, you're young, you bought a house. It's impossible for like young people to buy a house now and all this. And then once you come to find out, they hate their career, they're only in their career because it's what their family wanted them to do,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
living a life that basically is almost, like, predetermined for them. So and I
Yes.
think that a lot of people have those issues, and it goes on throughout life until they're ready to break the cycle.
Yeah, and also it's really looking outside yourself. And I have many clients over 40 years of doing this. I have clients of all different financial, status, from billionaires, multi-billionaires, government officials, all different people from all over the world. And it's continuous in that it's the same in that no matter how much money you have, power you have, if you're not happy within yourself, if you don't have that sense of who you are and love yourself, then the rest of it means nothing. Because really we're given, like, let's say, wealth is an energy. It's what we do with it that counts. A position, a high position of authority is what you do with that power, what you do to help other people is really why you're in that. It's a lesson. It's all about lessons that we come back here to learn, soul lessons. And people are put in those positions. I often think it's predetermined before we come back, your position in life, your financial position, your career, if you will, to really help yourself, help other people, and to teach people, and there are great opportunities, and have opportunities every single day, and we just got to be able to use our opportunities to help other people and to serve other people.
Do you feel as though everyone that's living was reincarnated?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh, 100,000%. If we can measure by human standards. Yeah. I think that this is the Earth is a one soul school, but I think there are many. If we could say millions, I think there are many galaxies. I think there are worlds within worlds within worlds. I think that the Earth school is one of the hardest schools for the soul. I think because we're thrown into a school here where you have baby souls who think that power or money and ego, and that's their power. And then you have the opposite, which are postgraduate souls, which is about healing and compassion and kindness and forgiveness. And then you have the middle school souls, which are still trying to figure little things out. And when you have those different levels, it forces different scenarios to occur and how someone's going to behave in those scenarios. So in a way, you can behave the best you can by going within yourself and knowing what is true, what is right for you, what is the right thing to do. And I've been taught, I'm sure you have also, in growing Catholic, and it's something I held on to, the Catholic, is the faith in many religions, the golden rule: treat another person as you want to be treated. And I
Yeah.
think that is the golden rule. I think because really, we're all one. The two biggest illusions we have in this three-dimensional world is, number one, death. There's no such thing as death. You can't kill energy. Energy changes form. We are souls in a human experience. And the other is separativeness, that we're separate from one another. And we're really not. We're very connected to each other. And those are the two greatest illusions we have. And I know that personally because I had a near-death experience. And the first thing I was aware of was that we're all connected, and that what I think will affect every other person. There's that rippling effect, if you will.
That's
Yeah.
so what was your near-death experience like?
Let's see, I went to dinner. I was doing this show. What show was I doing? I was living in Los Angeles, and I was doing my TV show Beyond. It was a daily talk show, Beyond, and I did readings, and it was pretty exhausting. I mean, I did it every day for 4 days a week, and it was 5:30 in the morning until about 5 in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was going from makeup and hair and all that stuff, and then they bring the audience in, and sometimes the audience they would come from all over the world, and they'd wait outside the studio, and there were 200 seats, and they were not sure they were going to get in, and they'd fly from all over the world. And me being the person I am, I used to go out and it was cold, and there was a donut store down the street, and I used to get donuts for these people and
Oh,
coffee.
that's so nice. That's
And well, you know what? And I passed out these donuts, and they say, Is that him? Is that him? Is that him? Oh, don't mind me. Just because, I mean, goodness gracious, it's the least I could do. And anyway, I was doing that, and it got exhausted because some of the readings that these producers who didn't really know what they were doing, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to get involved because in those days, the skeptics thought I was like, they were all against me. Like, and I didn't know what a skeptic was, but I just wanted to prove that I didn't know anything about these readings. And now looking back, I should have been involved in it because the production would have been much better. Anyway, there were some heavy, heavy stories, murders and kidnappings and all these heavy duty things that the producers thought, oh, if it's a dramatic story, he's going to get a hit on something. It's like, and it's you look back and say, wow.
Yeah.
So, because they were uneducated about the process, obviously. Anyway, so that was very exhausting. And I know how to run my energy and use my energy, but still it gets a bit exhausting. So at the end of one day, I remember when my friend Victoria, and we went out, we had a bite to eat, and we had a couple of glasses of wine, and just a couple of glasses of wine. And then that night, I went to my apartment in LA. I woke up and I was really sick. And I thought, oh, I must have had the food and the wine or something. And I started getting really sick. And I drove back to my house down in Orange County. And I would remember I had to stop at every exit and let go of the contents inside. Was really gross. And I got back home and I'm like, I'm really sick. So that afternoon, my partner Brian at the time came over, and I said, I'm really sick. And I went into the bathroom there, and I blacked out. My head hit the counter and I went right out of my body. I'm looking down and I'm like, see my body there. I'm like, and he's not in the bathroom yet. He's still in the living room. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? I know that it's not my time, but what am I doing outside the body? I know it's my time. And I saw my cousin Pat, and she came to me right in front of me, and she completed suicide many years ago, like 20 years before. And her and I are the closest in the family. She told about metaphysics and reincarnation. And I said, Pat, I gotta get out of this, and it's going on. And she said, it's gonna be over real soon. I said, do you mean over, or over? Because
Yeah,
you
exactly.
keep your personality, right? So then she disappeared. I saw my father, and I had this awareness before I saw my father. I knew I was outside of time. There was no such thing as time. And I knew that everybody has, if you will, an energy that their thoughts are things, and that every thought has a color to it. And as you think, that color goes into, if you call it like a tapestry, a tapestry, I could just say. And that color influences that tapestry, and every single person will feel those particles. And I knew then that what we thought becomes part of everyone and everything, and that we're all connected. So that was my sense of we're all connected, we're all one. And and then all of a sudden I saw my father, and he said he had a brown suit on, and he handed me a rose, and he said, "It's not your time." And as soon as I had the rose, I was right back in my body. My head hurt. My partner Brian was in the bathroom and said, "Wake up, wake up, wake up." And that was it. And I had what was called a Mallory Weiss tear. And that was a tear of the esophagus. And the only way to heal that is just really just naturally, you have to stay in a hospital, and that's all you can do. So they gave me 5 pints of blood. So that's what happened. And I was in the hospital 2.5, 3 weeks, and I was back to normal, back home. So that was my NDE.
Yeah. Oh man. That had to have like affected you too after the fact, because from what I've heard and read and watched about people that have near-death experiences, but I mean, you were already in touch spiritually. But I mean, with a lot of people, it kind of like it shifts the way they think about like life and how
Well,
to go about it.
yes, you're very right. That's very, very true. And I didn't really think much about that until a friend of mine who was a promoter who used to I did events with. She said to me one day afterwards, she said, your readings have really changed. Your communications have changed. They're very more high-minded in that I think you have your guides influencing more. And after she said that, wow, it's very, very true. Because then I pay attention to the messages that are coming through, and not only the messages, evidential details. You've seen me, the evidence, but now they're higher minded. And then what's the lessons, the spiritual lessons? With along with the evidence comes the spiritual lessons of the deceased loved one coming through to their loved one on the earth, how they can change their life in a better way. So they definitely have expanded the type and the quality of the messages coming through without a doubt. And I really believe that NDE was the beginning of that for sure. And I also think the more you all of us, the more we open ourselves up to that possibility of the higher worlds and the higher thought, placing your mind in the higher places of love. And I've always been one to explore, like I was like, what's next? What's happening? Well, that curiosity, that natural curiosity, I think is really good for us all to have, to question things all the time, because we have to be in the mindset to wanting to learn something new every day. That's what I think.
At what point in time in your career did this happen? Like
I was wow, that's a good question. In my I've been working about 25 years then, so 25, 30 years, yeah. So about 15, well, no, more about, I'm sorry, forgive me, 10. I'll say exactly. So I've been in my house 10, about 15 years ago it happened.
okay, okay.
Yeah, so yeah, so 30 years in the, yeah, about 25 years in the work.
That's
I
so
bring it now about 40, around 40 years, close to 40 years I've been doing my work. So probably when it's 25 years.
and you've had a really impressive career because I mean you've written a ton of books, New York Times bestsellers list, and you co-executive produced Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt, which I love that show.
Well, thank you.
I
Thank you
love
very
that show.
much.
What was that experience like, by the way?
Wow, that was an experience. Well, before that, what happened was I had a relationship with CBS. I did a reading for the network heads at CBS, and they really enjoyed it. And they wanted to do let's see how that all started. Boy, it was they wanted to do. I had a book called Talking to Heaven, my first book, and NBC had it to write a movie. Those days, movies of the weeks were the thing, and NBC had it, and they in development, and they didn't use it during the development period, so CBS bought it from them.
Okay.
And just a quick story, which is pretty funny about that, was how it all started was let's see, the writer for the script was on an airplane, and Mary Steenburgen was sitting next to him. And she said to me years later, she said, I never speak to people on the planes, but my father in the spirit world, she said, he told me to talk to this young man. So she asked the young man, what is he doing? What is he writing? And he said, it's so funny you're sitting here because I was thinking about you for using you as one of the roles in this movie. It's Talking to Heaven, based on James Van Prague's book. And she said, oh, I love that book. I've given it to 6 of my friends. I love that book. Can I meet him? And he said, well, I don't know, but I can maybe ask and see. So long story short, I went to Mary and Ted Danson's house in Brentwood, and I did a reading for them and for some friends of theirs who could have been well-known people. I don't know. I think maybe directors, producers, who knows. Anyway, I remember Ted Danson's father came through, and I can tell you this story because he mentioned it on an interview. His father came through and said, your father's here in a herringbone jacket. Now, Ted is sitting in an ottoman, okay?
Yeah.
I said, there's a man here in a herringbone jacket. He's drinking a whiskey, and he's in front of the fireplace. And he said, that's me, and I'm in heaven if this is how I am. Ted looks at me, and Ted went, huh? And Ted falls down on the floor. He falls right off the auto onto the floor, like, oh, geez, what did Ted dance? What did I do to Ted dance? So I was like, oh. So what happened was after the reading, and there some other readings were pretty good. And he came up to me, he said, I didn't believe in this, but my father used to come home from work every day. He put on a herringbone jacket, have a glass of whiskey, and sit in front of the fireplace. So I know that was my dad.
On
And
point.
the following day, the production company called me up. They said, listen, we can't find anybody who wants to play you in Talking to Heaven in the movie. They asked Gary Sinise, he turned it down, and no one wants to play a medium. This is back, before Ghost Whisperer.
Yeah.
And they said there's only one person, that Les Moonves, who was the head of CBS at the time. He's going to ask Ted Danson, because Ted Danson is in Becker, the show Becker, and he has a good relationship with him. And I said, well, that's very strange. I just did a reading for him last night. And the producer's like, well, can you ask him? I said, no, I cannot ask him. I'm not crossing that line. But how it worked out, Ted found out about this last night, Moonves. He had the experience with me, and Ted decided to do the movie. And we shot the movie in Vancouver. It did really well. It was the #1 movie for CBS in the history of the movies, except for Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth was #1. We went to #2. It was called Talking to Heaven, or The Dead Will Tell. They had 2 different names. And it's still on Amazon. It's pretty well known now. And anyway, from that, they did so well, they did another movie with The Dead Will Tell, called Ava Longoria and Haish. And that was a funny story because Anne Haitian and Ava, this is before Ava was Ava, I went down to New Orleans and it was during a break in the shooting. A girl comes up to me and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." She goes, "I just finished a pilot and I was wondering if I was going to do anything." And I said, "What's the name of it?" She said, "Desperate Housewives." I said, "Oh, you're going to be a household name." Well, that was Eva Longoria. And she was in that was her first really big movie, I think.
Yeah, that put her on the map.
That put her on the map. And so years later, we're shooting Ghost Whisperer in the stage right next door to Desperate Housewives. And I've been wondering, when am I going to see Eva? Maybe I should go over there. No, James, don't go over there. So I was at the commissary at Universal. I'm sitting down by myself, and there's Eva coming out from getting a tray of something, and our eyes locked. And she screams, and I scream. I ran over to her and I said, "Well, did it change your life?" And she goes, "Yes." Oh my God. So that was Eva, and that changed her life. And then from the Ghost Whisperer, what happened was it was very, very interesting. I had to do a demonstration for the executives at ABC and Disney, and to show them this is real and this is very, very interesting. So I kind of sell them
Yeah.
this. And I hired the executive producers, I interviewed executive producers, and Jennifer Love Hewitt's office was right next to these people at Disney. And she was a big fan of my work, and she agreed to do it. And we did the pilot. And the pilot is, as you see the show, there
Yeah.
is a formula, and the formula is number one, which I didn't agree with at first, getting everybody into the fear factor, if you will, grabbing people, and then doing the story, and then at the end, it used to be pretty scary, and I said, "Listen, I can't do this. I can only do it at the end if there's a healing that takes place." Because I believe that thoughts are things, and I had to say it to them in the language they would understand, TV language.
Yeah.
But it had to be done in the sense of someone's at the door, sorry. It had to be done in a sense where they would understand it. And I said, people got to leave in love. They got to have this positive energy. Let's leave the show in a positive way. So at the end of Ghost Whisperer, all of the episodes, you'll see that she brings them to the light. So there's a healing that takes place. And that show did really, really well. It was the #1 show for 5 years on Friday nights.
Yeah.
And we decided when it was on top, we're going to let it go at that. And that was the history of Ghost Whisperer. And there's a lot of little scenarios of things that have happened here and there in this show. But yeah, people loved it. People really related to the show.
Those executives really vetted you. I
Yes.
feel like from what it seems like, well, when they went over and you read a bunch of people, I'm sure all of them had some significant role that you just didn't know about. And then they were probably like, holy shit, he's the real deal.
Well, I'll never forget this one guy named Morgan. Never forget his name, and I'll use it. Morgan. He was in development, and he came over, and he literally was on his cell phone at the producer's house,
Yeah.
and he goes, "How long is this going to take? I have some work I have to do." And I just looked at the guy and I thought, well, he has no clue what he's going to get into.
Yeah.
And an incredible experience. His grandmother came through and she took all these details, and he was pretty persuaded. So, as you know, because you've been to my audiences, it's pretty life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I feel like and that brings me on a whole other subject I want to talk to. But I do feel like when people go to your shows, they see how authentic it is.
Yeah.
Because like there's no, yeah, there's like maybe there is a structure, but you always go off the structure, if that makes sense.
Always.
Yeah, and
Always.
I like that. Yeah, I like how it's
I always let them take me, because you have to, when you do the work of the medium, you gotta let the spirit world guide you, because they're the ones you're working. You're really working for them. You're not working for your audience. Of course, you're there with the audience, but you're working for the spirit world, in that there could be some experiences that the communication that have to come through from their point of view. Because let's say it's a father that never told his daughter he loved her, and he's in that kind of, I don't want to say purgatory, but a holding station, if you will, with his mental thoughts of, I should have told her I loved her, I should have told her, why didn't I tell her that? And this gives that father the opportunity to come through and tell his daughter he loves her. And it frees him up and it frees her up. And that's what it's about.
and you deal with dead people all the time. So I want to talk about some topics that there's sort of like a stigma on. So people
Okay.
feel like if you commit suicide, you're indefinitely either going to hell or purgatory. And then people feel like another one is like if you're gay, you're just always imperfect and you don't have good things coming when you die. So
Isn't that crazy? Well, it's so archaic now. And one good thing is things have changed so much since I first, came out and that whole thing, with whether it's mediumship or being gay, and Catholic, the whole thing, it's so different now. Like first, let's go back to when I first started being a medium. I was the only one out there on television that did it. John Edward wasn't even heard of yet, and
Yeah.
Sylvia Brown wasn't even heard of yet. And there was a man by the name of George Anderson in Long Island, but he didn't do TV. So it's the first one on TV. And it didn't dawn on me, but it really did change the consciousness in a way. And it presented it to the public that made it much more questionable, about life after death and so forth. And I remember this is very interesting. I remember when I did my TV show Beyond, and certain things would happen, and the producers, of course, it's like when you have TV, Hollywood and spirituality, train wreck, complete train wreck, because they have no sense of it. But I remember asking the spirit world when I did Ghost Whisper, and I said, why would you have these producers and these writers who have no clue what they're doing, and they're making it more frightening than it should be, and blah blah blah. And they said to me, James, think of the bigger picture. When people watch this television show, it's them questioning, is there life after death? And that's the reason why we're doing this show. I said, okay, God, now I understand it. But the suicide, I think it's all changing. I think evolving. I think, I think, I think it's getting too extreme with the whole woke thing. But I do think it's good to question people's rights, and that everybody has a right to be. Suicide thing is changing a lot now, which is great. Finally, because now instead of saying commit, which sounds like a sin, we now say completing. So in suicide, from my understanding, we're a soul having an experience, and it doesn't matter how we leave the body. Okay, so I do believe that we come here for lessons to learn, and that you really shouldn't cut school.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't, because there are lessons that you really should learn. And the hardest lessons are the ones we grow the most from. And if we don't learn in this lifetime, we'll come back and learn them again. We have to go through them to expand our soul. So, we should, there's no there's no devil, there's no one says bad on you for not doing that. There's compassion and kindness and tenderness with suicide. There really is. And there are groups of beings over there who welcome you. And they just say, well, you didn't pass it this time, but you'll do it again next time. Might be easier this time around, because again, you shouldn't cut school, because there's some of the destiny points you might go through. But there is no hell and brimstone. It doesn't exist. Suicide is different for the different intentions or reasons behind it. If someone suicides who has a mental disease, it's very different than someone who just has everything going for them. They decide the stock market goes down, they're gonna go bye-bye.
Yeah.
That's very different. And even someone who's in their 80s or 90s, who's lived a full life, and they decide, I've done it, my quality of life is over, I'm leaving. And I've dealt with that. I'm actually dealing with it right now with a good friend of mine who's at that point. And I believe that, when it's time to go, it's time to go. And if we need to learn a lesson of, leaving with no quality of life, that's okay for us, because we lived a full life. I don't think there's any punishment in that. I really don't. I think there's tenderness and caring and compassion, especially if someone lived a long life and did the best they could. All the spirit world ever asks of us is to do the best we can. Just to do the best you can. That's it. And we have what we pass over is a life review. And we look at all the experiences we went through, not only from our point of view, but from the other person's point of view. So let's say we were in a bad mood and went to a store, and we yelled at the cash register person, who in turn got very angry and yelled at their coworker, and the coworker got upset and went home and yelled at a family member. When you have your life review, you're going to become that cash register person. You're going to feel what they felt 10 times, 20 times, 30 times stronger than originally done. So then you have to feel what you created. And then you have to feel how the rippling effect to the coworker and to the family member. And your one thought, your one word, your one action created all that to happen. That's what we should be more concerned about.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm always thinking, but I've always thought about things like that, about how like if you die, like you relive the experience, how you affected other people, whether it be good or bad.
It's true. It's very, very true. It's very, very true.
Wow, interesting. So it's good that there's like this stigma that I feel like persisted for so long that's finally vanishing when it comes to psychics, mediums, clairvoyance, etc. on the
I think so, and I think that it's good to have it on TV. The quality of the mediumship, of course, I question because I've been doing it for many, many years.
yeah, well, that's another
And
thing.
that's the only thing. It's the quality is not as, I think that we get very careful. Again, Hollywood producers don't know the topic. But it needs to be done, produced by people that know what they're doing. So, a couple of friends of mine, myself and a couple of friends were thinking about doing some things. I'm doing one, I'm working on a reality show right now where it'd be a medium. And it'll be all about, yeah, adversity and we'll see what happens with that. But I think when there's production done with people that are knowledgeable of this subject, it makes a big difference than just throwing a medium up there just who is, they don't know really what they're up to, and the producers don't know how to produce it. It's a big difference. But at least it's out there. I guess we could just say that. At least it's getting out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. What's
It's
your
a
concept
double-edged
that
sword.
you're working on right now?
Yeah, it's true. It's a double-edged sword. And again, the bigger picture is at least people are questioning it. And at least it's acceptable, which is great. So
What's the concept of the show you're working on right now? Could you tell anything? If
I can't tell too much,
okay,
but it's a reality show. And it's based on a student of mine, and I'll be mentoring a student of mine on the show. And it'll be very interesting. It's going to cover a lot of different topics of everyday life. And it's not your typical reality show because my student isn't typical, so it'll be a little different. And that's really all I can say for now.
is it something where is it where they would read celebrities or read like your everyday?
No, not celebrities. No, celebrities can do it, but I might have Cher on the show. I might ask her to come and do an appearance on the
Okay.
show. I might have some celebrities just helping out with and in a way helping out with the process of doing a demonstration on a stage. So whether it's the outfits wearing or something like that. So it'll be it's going to be a show that everybody can relate to.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And it's not only about mediumship, but it's about everyday life, and it's going to be about acceptance.
Oh, I love
So whether
that.
the
Like,
person's gay, trans, the straight, whatever you want to call them, doesn't matter. People are people. It's going to be accepting the people for who they are, where they're at, and trying to get that the awareness that we're all the same, and also that my teaching that adversity is really what makes us stronger, and that everybody has a right to believe the way they want to believe, and so it's going to be more like those themes are going to be involved. So it's not going to be one of those let's read a celebrity. It's not going to be that. It's going to be a little bit deeper, but it's
I
going to be
feel
a
like
little bit.
that theme is redundant now. Like,
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, with all due respect, like I like Tyler Henry. I've interviewed him, written about him in the past, but when you interview only celebrities, there's public and they're big names. There's so much information you could find online that unless you're hitting at something so specific, I feel like it could become a little bit redundant. What do you think?
Yeah, but I thought, when John Edward has his show Crossing Over and my show Beyond, I like them because they're everyday people and
Exactly.
it's
Yeah,
everyday drama,
I
not
agree.
just celebrities. I mean, it's really about the work itself. It's about the process of life after death, that there is no death. I mean, that's the big thing. Celebrities, okay, but it's really about is there life after death? And I think that's much more dramatic. I mean, I remember doing a reading for Beyond, and I didn't know where I was going. They brought me to Brooklyn, and I brought through some mafia bosses, and it was like really interesting. And that was broadcast, and there was some really interesting things that we got on that show. And John Edward too, when he did his show, we got a lot of interesting messages through, and that to me is everyday life, and that means a lot more than the celebrity thing. And celebrities are celebrities. I mean, to me, I've met many, many, many celebrities, and I've met many people, political people, celebrity people, government people. Everybody's the same.
Yeah.
We're all one. We're all the same.
And I feel like it's more impactful when you're reading like, like normal people because I feel like you get more raw emotion and I feel like that's good for television.
And more people can relate to that. See, like my live demonstrations, people can relate to it because we're all, we all share two common experiences as humans. Number one is birth. We've been through that. We know a little bit about that. The other is death, and we all want to know what is that like, especially in cases where someone might die in a plane crash or a heart attack or has Alzheimer's or suicide. So we all want to know about these different things and what awaits us when we pass through that veil. And
Yeah.
that to me is important to get that knowledge and that education out there. And that's why I came back. I think that is my agreement to bring that knowledge and that awareness to the public.
Yeah, people need that because there's so much misinformation out there when it comes to all things spiritual nowadays. I see it myself. There's so much misinformation. So,
But that's why I created my school, the JP School of Mystical Arts, because I wanted a place for people to go to know that this is legitimate, genuine, and this is how it works.
yeah.
Because, so many young kids and people want to get into this, they want to do a spiritual bypass. They don't want to do the work. They just want to be there. It's like, no, no, no. It takes time. It's like, a great old recipe. You got to let it cook for a while. You got to let it simmer. You really got to go into the development of it all and the process of it, because the end result will be that much better. You can't rush through spiritual things. There's no spiritual bypass.
Yeah. Which is a hard lesson, I think, for all of us, because I know I'm a little bit of an impatient person by default. So,
But it's also the generational thing. It's the times we're living in. Everything's instant gratification with social
yeah.
media. Everything's so fast. So yeah, it's been tough for me in that I'm just so not used to this so quickness in this world, because I'm in my 60s now, and it's like, wow, everything is moving so fast. And I'm like, whoa, slow down. So I have a gardens. I work in my gardens here. I have a dog, and I just calm down because everything is so fast. And there are times, as we started the phone call, I'm still not with the cameras, the technical thing. It's not my world, and I admit that's not my world. So, but it's just a different time, different
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Well, with different times, I feel like come different trends. And I feel like the thing is, at least what you do now is everyone's into it. I feel like there's less of a stigma. But
Yeah,
on the flip side, there's a lot of charlatans, a lot. So,
yeah.
I mean, well, for one, how do you manage dealing with skepticism when it comes to you? And two, what are some tips that you could give people in terms of how to avoid, the fake psychics and mediums, which are out there?
Well, it's a good question. It's been around for a long time. The number one thing I'm dealing with right now, I'm not really dealing with skeptics anymore. When I first started working, I dealt with the amazing Randy, who was this, I don't know, old circus performer who's I was on Larry King Live once with John Edward, and it was a great moment John Edward had where Larry said, "So what do you think of the amazing Randy?" And who was a skeptic, and John said, "Anybody who puts an adjective before their name, I can't take for real," which is true. So there's always going to be people in the world. There are all different levels of souls, as I said, and there are those who don't believe, and those who believe, and everybody has a right to be who they are. And um, everybody, hey, go for it. Whatever you believe, you believe. If you don't believe, good, then don't. I don't want to force people. Even in my classes, my school, I tell people, listen, if it doesn't resonate with you, then don't take it. Take only one that resonates as truth to you. And I think we all have to have that tuning fork and that sense of what's real and what's not. The biggest problem I'm having right now, which I think we all are, especially in the public eye, are hackers. So, like my Facebook
Yeah.
page, I have people going on saying, telling people, "I'll give you a reading," and they're acting like me, and it's not me. And I've warned people on my Facebook page. I said, "Listen, on my social media platform, it's not me. I'm not going to be asking you to do readings. haven't done readings in 20 years. Don't do any private readings. So it's not me. So these are scammers." And that to me is even worse than the skeptics, because you're dealing with people that are fragile. And to take advantage of people like that is like, wow, I just can't fathom it. I just can't fathom. So that's really the worst part, is that the fakery, that which I think is going to get worse with AI. So as we're going to
Yeah, I
skepticism,
agree. I'm concerned about that. I really am.
yeah, like that's going to be the hard part. And it's a tough one. It's a daily type of thing with people, but it's times we're living in, I guess. Dealing with what I say to people is, if you want a genuine reading, a good reading, and go with a recommendation. Always go with a recommendation of someone who's had a reading with someone. Like, for instance, on my website, vanpraagh.com, I have a practitioners page. And those are people that I put on there who are mediums, who are genuine mediums. I've had readings with each one of them, and they're excellent. So I would go just based on recommendation. Okay. The other thing I say to people is, make sure the price is not outrageous. It shouldn't be outrageous. It
Yeah.
should be, your exchange of energy. Whatever that is, it shouldn't be a lot. I don't know, whatever that means. It shouldn't be a lot. So someone based on a recommendation, Also, you want to make sure when you get a reading from somebody, I always say there are some issues that you should need to know. Like, for instance, they should not ask many questions.
Yes.
Any
I'm
medium
so
asks a
bad.
lot of questions. Bye bye. So long. See ya. The only reason questions should be asked is if it's validation. So I should be able to tell you if I'm a medium, I should be able to say to you, I have a gentleman here is in his late 50s. He dies of a heart attack. He dies inside his 2-bedroom house. His daughter was next to him on the left side of him. Details like that. And then after I get all that information, the evidence from the gentleman, do you understand that? Yes, I do. Or, well, I understand part of it. Which part do you understand? And the medium has to be, this is why that development is so important, why you can't rush it, because the medium's job is to bring through evidential details, names, places, events, memories that no one else would know but the spirit in that person. I mean, one of the best ones I've had, and many, and I give it to them for feeding me it, was a little girl who came through to her parents, and she said it was a big demonstration like I'm doing in New Jersey. And I said, there's a little blonde girl here. She's three. Today, she says she's 3 years old today. And she's jumping up and down. She's wearing a pink dress. And she said, I want to talk about mommy and daddy. And I said, does that mean something to anyone here? There's a couple in the very back of the auditorium. They raised their hand and said, yes, that's our daughter. She died. Today's her birthday. And she said, Daddy, Daddy, I love the angel wings. Oh, thank you, Daddy. Thank you. And this guy was like this gym guy. I'm like, wow. He stands up, pulls off his t-shirt, turns around, and on the back, his lats are 2 angel wings that he
Oh,
had tattooed for her 3rd birthday. So that's kind of evidential, that stuff you want
yeah.
details
Someone,
like that.
yeah, would know.
That's incredible details. He wants things like that there's no way, it can't be general. And I really do get upset when I see mediums work who ask question after question after question, because they're not doing mediumship. They're doing
Yeah.
like questions. They're doing an interview. And to me, that's wrong. It's just so wrong. It shows me they haven't developed their craft. And it's sad. It really is sad. That to me is the worst part, asking too many questions.
You raise like so many good points. Like, one, price does not equal accuracy, which
Correct.
I've learned myself. Actually, what the ironic part is, from experience, sometimes those that are priced so outrageously high really aren't the best. So
That's exactly right.
that was a good point, especially when they start getting gimmicky and they do things in like numerology where it's the same number over and over. You know what I mean? Like a 999 type of thing, 888 type of thing. And then another clue is the questions. If someone's asking you 89 questions, hell, I could predict something if I ask people 20 questions. And it's so funny because I had a gut feeling about this one, but my editor said that they heard about this one psychic who I never heard of before. And they're like, oh, why don't I'm going to try this one. Why don't you try too? So I'm like, okay, sure. Right off the bat, I knew it just felt like maybe they thought they were psychic, but they were not. They wanted the birth dates of me, my parents, my brother, where we grew up. They were asking me 89 questions to begin this. And I'm just like, oh, like, what? So yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is many people don't know the difference between a medium and a psychic. Now that's really an interesting tell right there. In that a psychic, everybody is psychic to one degree or another. There's that knowingness, you can tell it's about the present moment or the past or possibilities of the future, right? So it's reading that moment right now. And it's reading, if you want to say, we can read the auric field that way and get information that way, read the soul energy, we can get information that way. You can hold a picture and say psychometry and that's how you can do something. That Tyler Henry does a lot. He holds an object. Now he doesn't even realize this, but what he's doing is he's doing psychometry, he's doing psychic work, and that's how we start to tune in. But mediumship is when you go into a higher frequency of vibration that you really got to bring your power up, your soul power, I'm gonna call it, that higher frequency, and really sustain that higher level of vibration and work with the spirit world who lower their vibration to a medium middle part called medium, right? And they send thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, and the medium is still at that high vibration. They pick up these influences, these memories, and they give them out. And they give them out as statements. They don't ask questions, they give them out as statements as they're receiving it. It's not easy to do, and that's why so many people don't want to do the work, because it's hard to develop as true mediumship. But there's definitely a difference in mediumship work and psychic work. You know, the word psychic medium, I hate that term. Hate it. Hate
That's
it.
another gimmicky term that a lot of them are
Hate
using.
it.
That should be another red flag, psychic medium.
Well, every medium is psychic. Not every psychic is a medium. Not every
Yeah.
psychic is a medium, but every medium has to be psychic. So every medium has to have a foundation of psychism. They've got to. So to me, that term is not doesn't make sense. It's an oxymoron.
Yeah, that's another thing that's trendy right now. And it's like, which is, and you raise a good point. Some people could be incredible psychics, but they're just not mediums.
Exactly. I mean, I teach at my school on some great psychics, and psychics are wonderful. And there's some great mediums, but exactly, they're two very different things. And healers also is a very different thing. Now, there could be aspects of healing and psychic work and mediumship, but a healing art, the art of healing is a different, again, a different discipline than the other two. So it's three very distinct things. Don't get me started. I'm a teacher.
How much do auras, because you say you could also see auras,
Yeah.
how much do auras play into when you do a reading?
That's a great question. Really good question, young man. Very good question. I haven't been asked that before, and it's a very smart question. I will say hats off to
Thank
you
you.
because that's a
I'm
very
into all
thoughtful
this. I'm
question.
into more of it,
Really
but
good. Really good. So it depends. So it depends for me when the auric colors, if you will, the emanations. There are many different colors which will change based on the thoughts, the feelings that the person has, and it's more of a psychic. I would say it's more psychic than and mediumistic. So if I see one in an audience, I will see them many times. I will see their colors. So I'll see them on a clairvoyance. I'll see that and I'll see we could say it's the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, and I will see, let's say, worry. I see worry sometimes a lot of red around their head. I'll say, oh, you're really worrying about things, and so it'll be a totally really psychic level, and that's okay. But I'll let them know ahead of time. You know, I might see colors that's very psychic. It's not mediumistic because I'll point them out to educate them. So I like to see auras. I don't always see auras. It really depends. And it's so interesting because it's so interesting to me. You know, when you pass in the spirit world, you don't see people physically, you see them in colors. You see in the auric field, you see the spirit body, which is all color. So this is interesting. For me, the hardest part of my job is not talking to dead people. That I can do pretty well, right? The hardest part is I see people's potentials in their auric field, their spiritual gifts, their abilities, their potentials, and they don't see it for themselves. So part of my job, I feel, is to help them to see them or to educate them or discover them and let them know what their potentials are. So that's what I do with the aura. And sometimes that shifts. It shifts when I'm doing a message for someone in the audience. The spirit person will go right to those gifts that they have. They'll go, not only will they bring through evidence, but they will give me, or I will be, my clairvoyance will be activated to see the colors. It all depends on the person I'm working with and what the reasoning is from the spirit world.
So interesting. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
asked that because just as psychic and medium are not the same thing, which people get confused. The same thing when it comes to like people who could read auras. You could do all three. So that's why I wanted you to explain.
And auras can be very much a psychic, very much so. I had a good friend of mine called Kay Ray, who since passed. Very good. They called her the body finder. She was very good psychic. And she used to use colors all the time. And she said, oh, you're a red person. You're a reactor. A physical reactor is red. So everyone sees them differently, interprets them differently. But I think a good aura reader is a very psychic. They can do things that in that level. It's at that level. But I think a good aura reader is incredible. And I think that's a really wonderful gift to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine what my aura is.
Well, I think you do very well. You think a lot, though.
I do, I
You
get
overthink things.
I do constantly. Trust me, I do. I'm in my
You're a
head.
lot of red, you're a lot of red, a lot of yellow, which is mental too. So overthinking things. Most people overthink. You know, in my courses, I teach a lot of head to heart. You could bring your head to your heart and live heart forward. And it works so much better because, we're the soul is tucked neatly behind the heart, and the soul continues on, lives lifetimes and lifetimes. But the head, the brain, it doesn't. So your eternal self, you want to go with.
True. Advice to live by.
Yeah.
Speaking of readings, do you still do personal readings?
I don't do personal reads. I haven't done them for 20 something years now because I used to do them when I first started, two a day. I would do one in the morning and one in the evening. And that for years and years and years. And then Spirit said to me, we want you to reach more people. So start doing demonstrations. And I used to do, I started, gosh, at a hotel in North Hollywood, California for like 200 people every once a month. And that went from 200 up to like 700. And it was every month I did that for many, many years. Yeah. And
Oh,
then it was all word of mouth. My publicity was all, I never went out seeking publicity. I always, people came to my house, like, because I lived in Los Angeles. I had producers of Unsolved Mysteries came to my house.
I've
They had
seen
me on
that,
their
by the way.
show. Yeah, and a show called, what was it called? The morning talk show. I forget. So many shows. But Larry King's producers came to my, saw me, and yeah, so it was all word of mouth. And all my clients were all word of mouth. I never advertised ever, and it was
That's
always just,
incredible.
that was the way it was. Yeah,
That's really incredible.
yeah.
And I've seen the Unsolved Mysteries piece. I love that show. I wish it would return because I watched the reruns on YouTube. And
It was a great show. It was on for years. It was a great show. Cosgrove Muir, good producers, and they had some great topics, and it was a great show. I agree with you. I thought it was very, very good. Yeah.
I feel like now we need it. Some
And now we need it. Yeah, I agree. Now
more
we
than
need it.
ever.
That was a very weird thing when they did that show because I had just come back from Brazil. I did a tour to Brazil and I came back and they had an actor who was portraying me. And it was the weirdest thing that I go and look at this like, wow, he kind of looks like me, but not really. He has a mustache. I see that. But yeah, it was very strange. That was a really strange one. But it was that was one where it's about skeptics. They brought me in on a Saturday and I had to read this room. And I remember they put a skeptic in there. I didn't know that until I started the reading. And I said to this couple, I said, you belong with him. He belongs with you. Why aren't you sitting together? And they deliberately separated them so I wouldn't know. But their son came through and said they belong together, my mother and father. And I said, isn't I don't get the kid's name, it was Charles or something. And the skeptic's argument was, well, she was wearing a big C around her neck, so of course they'll come up with any idea.
Yeah, they will. Yeah,
They
anything to
really
shorten it,
will.
they will.
But yeah, but that was an interesting one. That was a very interesting one. And the Raskins, Sue and Doug Raskin, their son came to me in a private reading, and I said, I see Mount Fuji, and I said, he's showing me a picture of the team, the mountain team at the base of the mountain. Do you know that photo? And they said, no. I said, well, he's telling me you're going to get his photo of that. They said, we don't know anything about that because he died there at Mount Fuji, and we haven't received anything back. So I said, well, there's a message on a picture from him at the base of a mountain. That's all he's telling me. And she goes, okay. So months later, the mother Sue calls me up and she said, you're never going to believe this. I said, what? She goes, we were looking through our son's things. And there was certainly a camera we had developed, the film, and there was a picture of his team at the base of the mountain. And the word LOVE was in the picture.
Oh, wow.
And that was on Oprah's show too. She pointed that out. And the first time I saw the photo was on the Oprah show when they pointed that out. So that was interesting. Yeah. Spirit will try any way they can.
You've been on so many shows, like everything from Larry King to Oprah to Unsolved Mysteries to even the Real Housewives of New Jersey.
Yes, I went Teresa
Yeah,
Guducci.
you filmed with
Yeah, that was
Teresa and
interesting.
Dina, and you were on point with what you said to her about she was gonna get off pretty easy, which her jail sentence was short, but like her husband not so much, and then he had to deal with
Yes.
shit with ICE. He ended up being deported. He's in Bermuda, so
Yeah,
Bahamas.
that's exactly what happened. And
But
the funny
yeah,
thing was his father, it came through that his father was going to pass over. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, the father passed over. Oh, God. And I
wow.
rarely get stuff like that, but that was a pretty interesting one. Yeah, I've done a lot of TV shows, lots and lots of Chelsea Handler I did for a while for that show. And yeah, it's different nowadays, though. It's different. It's very different. The market's very different out there. Promoting a book is very different now that we have the internet and the social media. So it's a whole different world. But yeah.
Are you working on another book?
There's talk about me doing an autobiography, so I might do that. I want to write a book about my experiences with Shirley MacLaine because her and I have had a lot of great experiences, but I can't kind of do that because I don't want to be sued. And it's all pretty private. But I had some great experiences with Shirley. That was really amazing. Shirley MacLaine kind of opened my eyes with her book Out on a Limb. And I was working then at a time for a producer, Norman Lear, I was working for, and he had an organization called People for the American Way, and it was to fight the religious right. And that was back in, gosh, 1990s, and or maybe late 80s. And I remember I wrote Out in the Limbs before I did anything spiritual. And I remember I was reading that book and I thought, wow, this speaks to my soul. This resonates, this truth, this book Out in the Limb. And I had her number because I was working on the celebrity auction for Norman Lear, and I had her address. So I thought, I'm going to send her a thank you card. And I sent her a thank you card for this book. And I never think I'd hear anything back. And on Christmas Eve, I got a card from her, and she said, "Thank you for your words, and in the world of your world of charities, or whatever it was." And we became good friends, and I mean, really good friends for a long, long time. So yeah, that really was an interesting how that evolved into that. And it was a medium. It's very funny because there was a medium I went to, my teacher, Brian Hurst. He
Yeah.
said to me the second time I was with him, there was a magazine that Shirley MacLaine was on the cover. And he said, if you keep it up and do the work of spirit, you're going to meet her one day. And sure enough, I did.
Fair enough, you did, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Yeah.
celebrities in the industry, but when you filmed that Housewives episode, I know Dean is really spiritual. Did producers bring you in, or were you actually friends with her?
Dina Manzo. Now, I met her at an event in New York, like a demonstration. I think it was in New York, New Jersey. And I met her. That's how I met Dina. And then we hung out. We had dinner together. We hung out on the weekend together with some friends. And that's how I met Dina. Yeah. Lovely lady, Pisces lady, very sweet woman. And I
Oh,
think she lives in California now. I think she's living somewhere in California. We lost touch, but yeah. I liked Dina. I liked her. I knew her more than Teresa. I just met that one day.
yeah, I figured. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy thing. The whole reality housewives thing's a little crazy, I think.
Why was production was it a lot?
Well, I just think reality TV sometimes is like not really reality TV. I think they set things up. And so it's not real. It's like they have set certain scenarios that they want things to be done. So to me, that's not really reality TV. So I have a hard time with that.
Well,
But my reading certainly was. She didn't
yeah,
expect
your
it.
reading was definitely on point
Yeah.
with them, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't know if you could do it I don't know if nowadays you could do that. I don't know. I mean, I guess Tyler Henry does that with celebrities and stuff, but yeah, it's a different world, I think. It's so different.
Yeah, it is. And like his show, like you could tell it's a little bit like, even though he is reading them, you could tell it's a little bit overproduced.
It's because the producers don't know. They just don't know the topic really well. They just know reality TV and they want to sell. It's so funny because to me, if it's done well, and I mean, you've seen me before when I do my shows. I'm a teacher, and I teach in a way that people really love it, that they get it. And I think the world is ready for that. I think we really are not just entertainment, but with teaching involved with it, people can really think. You can be entertained and you can think. Just like Ghost Whisperer, in a way, people had to think about that. There was some healing there, and they think about relationships and how they want to heal certain relationships and forgive someone. So there's teaching elements. And I have a broadcasting degree. I really do, from San Francisco State, because I was going to be a sitcom writer years ago. And I did 2 sitcoms actually. So, but my thing was going to school in broadcasting.
I remember I read that you got you went to school for broadcasting, you got an entry-level job with Paramount/CBS, and then you quit, but then you end up coming back in a big way for the shows. So
I was offered a job. This is a very weird story. When I was a PA, I was in LA, and I was no, I'm sorry, I was in San Francisco, and I was getting my degree, and there's what they call the broadcasting conference for the alumni, and they brought in David Anspa and Steven Yurkovich, and they were producers of Hill Street Blues. It was a show on MTM Studios, and I asked them. I said, "Do you need a PA on the show?" And they said, "Yes. Come down by July 7th in LA, in Studio City, and at the studios, and we'll hire you." I said, "Great." I thought, wow, that's amazing. And I'm back to New York, got all my stuff. My mother had a stroke and was incapacitated. And I thought, well, would she want me to go? Should I stay? What should I do? So it was a test. And I knew that she'd want me to go follow my dream. So I went cross country, got to LA by July 7th of that year. And MTM Studios said, "Oh, he was incorrect. We don't hire people that way." So I left my phone number for him to call me before cell phone. and he never called back. And I was stuck in LA not knowing a soul. And I was like really stuck. And I'm literally on the Gower Street. And I look behind me and there's a Hollywood sign. I'm like, what's going on? What is this about? And I literally I really had to look for work, and it was a really hard time. But I mean, it's amazing how things are led and curved, and they obviously had big plans, but it's just amazing if we just be open to whatever. And just I knew I had to do something on television. I just knew it. And I just went for it. And just like, well, I'll just do whatever I have to until something happens.
I love that. I always feel like things ultimately, if they're meant to be, come full circle.
Yes. And if you're true to yourself, if you know who you are, that's a secret. You got to know who you are and believe in yourself. And that really does help when you have a sense of who you are. And you listen to that gut inside you, that intuition, because your soul will always tell you the truth. It's a natural tuning fork. And that's what we all need to listen to. And that'll always guide us. It's guide us through lifetimes. It's there to help us.
Yeah, I feel like that. I feel like I have a good intuition. My problem is I tend to not listen to it, but I always learn. I always
Because you overthink it.
yeah.
Yeah, you're in your head. Yeah.
Now these shows that are coming up, what could we expect from them? Are you doing meet and greets? Tell me everything that we should know.
Okay, well, the shows are going to be me coming on stage, and last time I was dancing because it came on. And last time I was, I think in Bergen, last time I was there, it was very, very cold. And I remember it was right after the winter, and people were really freezing in their coats. And I thought, oh gosh, I got to warm up this crowd because they got to be open.
Yeah.
And East Coast people, it's a little hard.
Oh
So
yeah, they're tough.
a little hard. So the stage manager told me, he goes, Bruce Springsteen always comes here. He's always in like 101F. I said, really? And I'm a Bruce fan from way back. So I got on stage and I said, hey, New Jersey. And I said, I heard Bruce is going to be here. Bruce, are you here? And I went off the stage, I'm literally looking for Bruce. Bruce, are you here? You're not Bruce. And I went all around the whole theater and the audience saying, where's Bruce? And people said, who is this nut and this crazy guy? But they laughed when, and then I got on stage and fell down and collapsed because I was exhausted. But it shows them, number one, that I'm just a normal, funny, average guy from the East Coast. And they love that because a lot of people have a perception before they meet you that you're this thing. They have their own perception of what you're going to be like. And immediately I throw myself off the pedestal. I don't like being on a pedestal. And they say that I'm just an average, normal guy. And I explain to them my background about how I got started and what this is about and what to expect, what not to expect. I have to change up their way of thinking because a lot of them think the more they think of their loved one, come to me, come to me, come to me,
Yeah,
then
true.
the success will be there. And it's quite the opposite. It's when you open up that space and you just become neutralized, then spirit can come through. You're giving them space to come in. But if you're sitting there saying, come to me, you're actually blocking it. So I have to get that concept out to them and teach them that. And because it's really hard for me to work and spirit to work if they want to control and demand it. So that's the first thing, getting them to, well, the second thing, first, learning who I am. Second is telling them how to be. I say, they have a responsibility to just be open-minded. And then I just open myself up. I might do a meditation. I might do some questions and answers beforehand, see, what general questions I might have, because they might, well, they've never met me before. They might have seen Teresa Caputo or Tara Henry or someone else, but every medium works differently. So my responses could be very different. And then we do the mediumship, and I try to do as many readings as I possibly, messages as many as I can. I have a good friend named Maureen Hancock, who's a wonderful medium from New England. And I was with her 2 weekends ago, and she did about, I would say, 25 messages in like 15 minutes. So she's my girl. And we're doing a retreat in Sedona in April together.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I'm going to try as many messages as I can. And then we do a slight intermission and then come back to more messages. And then after that, a meet and greet.
Nice, very nice, very nice. These are going to be fun.
It's a full night. It's a full evening. It's a full experience.
Yeah,
People's lives. Yeah.
I'll be at the Anglewood one. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, good. Okay. Make sure you come back and say hi.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll grab like a photo and stuff. That would be
okay. Perfect. Okay.
That would be great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
We covered a lot. We covered a lot, and I loved it because, I mean, the more information, the better for everyone out there.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for getting the word out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. You need to come back.
Okay. All
And
right. Thank you.
yeah, let's stay in touch. Let's stay in touch.
Okay, sounds good.
And
God
real,
bless.
I'm gonna take a quick photo. So if you want to smile,
Okay, smile.
all right, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, my camera's working okay. I don't know, my computer can. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.